today, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm delighted to introduce our panel. We have Lydia Collins with us from NNLM, all of us in the TEC, Christy Eustace from Arizona State University, their evaluation office, Rihanna Putnam from the Citizen Science Association, Darlene Cavalier at Arizona State University, a professor of practice at the School for the Future of Innovation and Society there, as well as the founder of SciStarter. And of course, you know what Citizen Science, I think some of you know what Citizen Science Month is, but we'll, for those of you who don't, and who ended up here anyway, we'll make sure to explain that in the presentation as well. For those of you who just joined us, please put your name in the chat, where you're calling in from, your zip code, please. If you have anything you're excited to learn about in this webinar, feel free to drop that in there too. Any questions you have for us right off the bat, put it in the chat, and please make sure you select all panelists and attendees so you can start some conversation with your fellow attendees in that chat box over there. You can also use the Q&A function. Anything goes. For those of you who might be tuning in live on YouTube, we'll do our best to monitor those YouTube comments, but we're mainly going to be monitoring the chat on Zoom. And for those of you who are in the chat on Zoom, just please keep in mind that we are streaming live to YouTube, and this is a live recording. So things you say may be broadcast out to the world. So we're going to get started with some polls. You all are here to learn about what we learned from CitSciMonth, and you're here to learn about the results of our evaluation. So for our first poll question, we want to know a little bit about you, who you are, and you can select all that apply, and I'm allowing panelists to vote too. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll in Zoom. And for those of you who are tuning in on the YouTube live link, feel free to put who you are in the YouTube comments. That's great too. So yeah, please tell us about you, select who you are, let us know if you're a project leader, if you're in charge of a citizen science project, if you're a citizen scientist yourself, if you're part of the library staff, we really want to know that. If you're an educator, a practitioner, whoever you are, just let us know. So I'm going to leave this up for just a few more seconds because we have a few other polls. So please get your votes in now. 3, 2, 1, and we're going to go ahead and end the poll. Looks like we have a pretty even spread of folks, and a few people have multiple roles, which is cool. So let's move on to our next poll question. So I want to know, for those of you who are here in the room with us today, did you watch or tune in to an online event during Citizen Science Month, which is April 2020? This can be an event that SciStarter hosted, or an event that the Citizen Science Association or another institution hosted. Just did you attend an event online about citizen science during April? Oh my gosh, we have quite a few no's coming in, which is super interesting. So go ahead and get those votes in. We're going to close this down in just a second. 3, 2, 1. Let's end the poll here. So the majority of you tuned into an event, but quite a few of you didn't, which is really interesting. All right, and we have a few more polls for you. So for those of you who tuned into an event, did you plan or facilitate it? Were you on the kind of the other side of the curtain there, creating experiences for other people during Citizen Science Month with these online events? So go ahead and answer that. Looks like we have majority no's so far, a few yeses. All right, I'm going to close this down in just a sec, so make sure you vote. 3, 2, 1. We're going to end the poll. All right, looks like 63% no. Super interesting. And this is our last question for the beginning. So for those of you who did plan an event, what happened to it? If you had planned an in-person event, you know, did you have to cancel it? Did you postpone it? Did it become a virtual event? And this is really only relevant to folks who were planning in-person events for CitSciMonth, but we just want to know, how did all the public health concerns and everything going on in the world disrupt what you had planned for April? Okay, and it looks like quite a few of you transitioned to a virtual event. some of you postponed, some of you canceled, some of you changed it to an alternate virtual event because you weren't able to transition the original event. So go ahead and select all that apply from the options here. And if none of this applies to you, but you did have an in-person event for April, please share with us in the chat what went on with you, and we'll make sure to monitor that. So go ahead and get those votes in. We have 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end the poll. Let's share those results. So it looks like the majority of folks who this question applies to, they transitioned to a virtual event. So thank you so much for answering our polls. And for those of you who joined, since we got started, please introduce yourself in the chat, include your zip code from where you're calling in from, and any questions you have for us. And now I'm going to hand it over to Lydia Collins. Lydia, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about all of us, that would be awesome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Lydia Collins, as Caroline said, and I am the Participant Engagement Lead for the National Library of Medicine's All of Us Research Programs Training Education Center. So I'm really pleased to see all of you here today and want you to know today's webinar under sponsorship of Citizen Science Month 2020 were brought to you in part by the Network of the National Library of Medicine and National Library of Medicine and the All of Us Research Program. So the mission of the All of Us Research Program is really to accelerate health research and medical programs and breakthroughs to make sure that people have access to the different types of prevention, treatment, and care for all of us, which is different. The goal of the program is to help researchers understand more about why people get sick or stay healthy. We're looking for patterns where researchers may learn more about what affects different types of people's health. The All of Us Research Program aims to build one of the largest and most diverse data sets of its kind for health research, with 1 million or more volunteers across the nation. So the National Library of Medicine and All of Us have prioritized citizen science as a focus for engagement activities with and through libraries and other community-based organizations. Next slide, please. Crowdsourcing and citizen science is an NLM and NIH priority area. And through citizen science and crowdsourcing, we're hoping to engage communities in addressing societal needs and accelerating biomedical science, technology, and innovation, as well as just getting people excited about science and getting involved in their homes, in their communities, and with their friends and loved ones. So we're proud sponsors of Citizen Science Month 2020, which provided a variety of opportunities for collaborations, even with having to transition to virtual events. The open source tutorial we created is available on the scistarter.org/NLM site. We are working on a Spanish version so that we can expand to more diverse populations. And we're really committed to increasing access to citizen science to diverse populations in and through our libraries and other agencies. So we're pleased to provide this opportunity for you to learn more about what happened in Citizen Science Month 2020, because we know that a lot of it was fueled by the energy and the work of many of you here. And we're hoping that those of you who weren't involved will be excited and join us as we plan an amazing Citizen Science Month 2021. So thank you, and I'll be here for questions.
Thank you so much, Lydia. And for those of you who have questions for her, don't forget to put those in the chat. We'll make sure to get to them at the end. And thank you, Lydia, and to the whole NNLM team for your ongoing support and for making all this happen. I'm going to turn it over to Darlene Cavalier now to give us a little bit of history about how Citizen Science Day became Citizen Science Month.
And I have the benefit of feeding off the energy of those two previous speakers, which always get me motivated. So thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Caroline. Nice to meet everybody. Yeah, going back a bit, first Citizen Science Day was several years ago. We launched something at the USA Science and Engineering Festival in Washington, D.C. A couple 100,000 people made their way into that festival over the weekend. We partnered with many federal agencies to just do ad hoc events. We partnered with the City Nature Challenge, which back then was just getting off the ground. I think there were 2 cities involved then. And like I said, several federal agencies. Citizen Science Association then formed a working group, which is very active today. And we hope that many of you will join and participate in that working group. Brianna will talk about that in a moment. And then we started a formal recognition of Citizen Science Day year before last year with support of one of the regions of NNLM. And we had collective impact around one project, a project called Stall Catchers. This is a project, a citizen science project that can be done online. And it was global. And this is a project to help accelerate research about Alzheimer's research. So we're very happy with the results. As you can see, our volunteers in that one weekend, and really it was one day, but in that one weekend accomplished as much research that it would have taken the Cornell researchers to do in 3.5 months. So then we didn't have too much formative or summative evaluation. We were kind of still figuring out, is this something that the world wants? Is this something that SciStarter can support? And last year, thanks to increased support from NLM and NLM, we were able to roll out a number of resources that Caroline is going to introduce. We were able to really formalize the evaluation plan that Christy will speak about later from Arizona State University, and start to galvanize a network of people interested in supporting Citizen Science Month. Because as our friend Dan Stenton at ASU Libraries, Arizona State University Libraries, likes to say, it was just too good for one day. So we had to make it a month. Let's see what's next on this slide. The goal this year is to inform and engage the public. And what's missing from here, language that's missing from this goal and this statement, is our emphasis on supporting libraries and our emphasis in particular in supporting underrepresented in biomedical research communities. And you'll see how we developed materials and worked in collaboration with NNLM to make sure that that open source tutorial that Lydia mentioned earlier, that the social media assets that we put together, some of the print that we weren't really able to use since the events went online, and a lot of other resources. We're careful to make sure that we're showing a diversity of representation. And it's something that we need to work on more. And you'll see how we're planning to do that in the months to come and for Citizen Science Month 2021. Next slide, please. And it's over to Rhiannon.
Great, thanks, Darlene. My name is Rhiannon Putnam, and I'm the Community Engagement Specialist for the Citizen Science Association. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about CSA today. The CSA has a complementary role to SciStarter and the other partners in Citizen Science Month, in that we support the people who lead citizen science projects. Citizen science really depends on collaborations, not just between the scientists and the public, but also among educators, app designers, community-based organizations, evaluators, librarians, policymakers, and more. CSA is a place for these project leaders to find and nurture connections and to make the citizen science possible and powerful. Our working groups are one of the places that these connections happen. We have 9 working groups. Citizen Science Month is one of them. We also have others that explore cross-cutting issues such as evaluation, policy, education, environmental justice, and more. These working groups are a place for people to share resources, best practices, and relevant information, both among group members and also to the broader citizen science community through webinars and resource guides. I'll link to a little bit or to more information about our working groups. They're a great place to make connections and grow as leader in the field. Our working groups also stepped up during Citizen Science Month to host live stream events to help practitioners dive deeper with Ask Me Anythings on topics such as evaluation and data quality. We also had panel discussions on citizen science response to COVID-19. And in addition to those that our working group hosted, CSA hosted a few discussion-focused events that were aimed to build connections and resilience in the field during this kind of unique Citizen Science Month in 2020. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Caroline.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon, and thank you to everybody at CSA for maintaining the working group and for your support from Citizen Science Day now to Citizen Science Month. So I think Darlene and I are going to talk a little bit about some of our online programs, like why we had to go online in the first place. I know COVID is something that's on everybody's mind, but we'll expand on that, and the 4 Ps. So Darlene, take it away.
Sure. This is actually This is yours to take, Caroline.
Okay, got it. All right. So COVID, right? We were originally planning for Citizen Science Month to be an in-person thing for the most part. I mean, webinars have always been part of our lives, but we had really wanted to emphasize reaching those underrepresented and biomedical research communities and other folks, library patrons, museum patrons, community members, all across the United States and around the world in person. But then it became unsafe to do so. And because of public health guidelines, in-person events were discouraged. So we quickly pivoted to online. So we prepared online materials very quickly. We had originally planned for a number of things like bookmarks and buttons, and we moved those to online flyers and graphics that folks could use, plug and play. We produced those with different partners, including ASU and our supporters at NNLM. And then the main thing is we wanted people to participate. So we wanted to meet people where they were, meet them on their computers, make it as accessible as possible, because we know that the internet itself can be a barrier for some folks, to get people doing citizen science during April and to come together.
And I'll just interject a little bit there, Caroline. Also, a primary goal was to support the librarians who had been planning in-person events and helping them transition to, oops, I should go on camera, sorry. Helping them transition to online events, even with all the struggles they were facing. A lot of them, they had to do this from home. So there's some lessons learned here that Caroline will go through. It's called By the Numbers, where we look at the stats that show us the data in terms of engagement levels. And then Christy is going to walk us through some of the evaluation. She went into deeper dives, including some interviews to see how the transitions actually worked out. Thanks, Caroline. I'm going to go back off.
All right. Yeah, that's why we brought citizen science to people's homes. So like Darlene said, we worked with libraries especially, but other institutions. I know we have the New York Botanical Garden in the Zoom room with us right now, for example. Folks from all over the world, the Citizen Science Association of Asia. We worked with, different entities for social media takeovers. We did all this because we wanted to reach people where they were through the power of the internet. And we encourage people to use the hashtag CitSciMonth to get excited on social media and to go to our landing page on SciStarter, citizensciencemonth.org. So if you have any thoughts during this presentation, we encourage you to still keep using this hashtag, because as Lydia said earlier, CitSciMonth is just around the corner, April 2021, so we'll keep it going all year long. So we had some really great partners in this. You've already heard about NNLM, ASU, and the Citizen Science Association, but Science Friday helped us kick things off by doing a webinar in March called How to Host or Facilitate Citizen Science Online Live Stream Events in a Pinch. I'm paraphrasing the title right there. But basically, they walked folks through different platforms and the best way to utilize them. So maybe a Google Hangout would be best, or maybe Zoom would be best. They kind of introduced folks to that to prime people to plan online events. And we also introduced the scistarter.org/NLM microsite there, which we had debuted in February. And then National Geographic was also a partner, and they helped in Citizen Science Month on that last Thursday of CitSciMonth. They did an educational webinar where they talked about resources for informal and formal educators, especially online, to reach people through citizen science. So we had a number of citizen science resources. I already spoke about that and how we pivoted them to online, especially with our social media tiles, and trying to give people plug and play graphics to use to promote citizen science. And I mentioned that landing page right there. So we have the citizensciencemonth.org where you can still explore it. We still have it up. And if there's anything that's useful there, feel free to keep using it. We're still an ongoing resource. We still have our weekly calls every Thursday. And we're still here to help you. The spirit of Citizen Science Month is throughout the entire year, not just April. And we also had a number of themed days. So we tried to highlight different projects on different days. We had Earth Day, of course, was big. There were lots of events on Earth Day. We worked with different partners. There were folks in Nigeria who had a Nigeria and Citizen Science Month Day where they had a special webinar, which was very awesome. And for many of these days, folks used the bookmarks that we designed, the graphics that we designed to get people either playing citizen science games or using the logos that we made. to help promote citizen science and Citizen Science Month. And you can still explore those on our landing page on SciStarter, CitSciMonth.org. Another big thing, because libraries are such a focus and are such natural hubs for citizen science, and I'm getting a request from Darlene to go back to the resources page just for a sec. We talked about the social media tiles and a number of our print resources like the bookmarks, the flyers, the buttons, that we pivoted to online graphics for folks to download and use. And we'll show you the statistics for those in a second. Darlene, do you have some comments on these?
No, just that they are still available and you can use the assets that we developed to customize them for your own. You can see that there's buttons and stickers, and on this page, there's also reading lists. Like, we spent so much time and energy developing these beautiful resources with a very talented designer, and it would be great if they're still put into use. Thank you.
Yep, they are available all year long for you for y'all to use. And if you want to tweet it today, you totally can. Go for it. So the library and community guide, that's also available on the graphics page and on our CitSciMonth.org page. That was created in partnership with NNLM, with ASU. And this is just a way for library staff and anyone in the community to get some tips, some ideas, kind of a blueprint to bring citizen science to your institution. And we're actually working on our next iteration, the Library and Community Guide 3.0, where we're going to focus even more on online events, because this latest version was made before we went fully online, where we still had a number of in-person emphases. But I encourage you to read through this booklet. It's an online PDF that you can page through to get some tips and some ideas.
There's also some case studies there. Sorry, Caroline, just want to reemphasize on the librarian and community guide. It's really designed for people who want to facilitate citizen science in their community. We center it on the librarian, but it's definitely applicable to other community leaders. And I think you'll enjoy some of the case studies that are in there too.
Thanks, Darlene. We also have the microsite that Lydia mentioned with different featured projects. And these have a focus on human and environmental health. So debris tracker to help study plastics pollution, Flu Near You, of course, to help spread the word, not the flu, and fill out simple surveys to track the flu, Globe at Night to study light pollution, IC Change, documenting weather and climate in your community, Stall Catchers, which Darlene mentioned earlier, an Alzheimer's research game that speeds up the search for a cure, and Crowd the Tap, which helps us take a step towards safe drinking water by using a simple kit to a penny and a magnet to help create a national inventory of tap water and test pipes for lead. We also have a citizen science tutorial that Lydia mentioned earlier that you can still participate in at scistarter.org/NLM, and which Christy will share some feedback on from surveys that folks filled out. I encourage you to use this tutorial with your communities, especially for our facilitators in the room. It's 30 minutes to complete it, and it basically walks you through the what, how, who, and why of citizen science, and it includes a certificate at the end. And for many of our online events, these were events that SciStarter produced or SciStarter either partnered with in some way. You can go to scistarter.org/citizen-science-videos to find spotlighted recordings from our YouTube channel, webinar recordings from Citizen Science Month, as well as a number of how-to videos created by project scientists, and how to use SciStarter videos as well. So please explore this. The digital accessibility webinar is one of my favorites. That was made with a library audience in mind about how to create user-friendly presentations and content and make things accessible online. So by the numbers, so we had over 40,000 folks visit that site, and since it's still up, it's still going up. So we look forward to continuing to reach people with CitSciMonth.org. We've had over 20,000 people visit that featured project page. And of those 20,000 people, there have been over 50,000 contributions to NLM featured projects. And we're able to track that because the projects on that page are what we call SciStarter affiliates, which allow people to track the number and frequency of their contributions in their dashboard. So for Stall Catchers, for example, every time I make an annotation of a blood vessel, I'm able to go to my SciStarter dashboard and see, oh wow, I made 10 annotations on August 10th. And this is really important for assessing collective impact. So something to keep in mind as you contribute to SciStarter affiliate projects. Those downloads that Darlene mentioned, people, downloading the book list, the library guide, bookmarks, graphics, social media materials. We had over 6,000 downloads of those. So we're glad that they got to good use during Citizen Science Month, especially with the quick pivot to online programming. And for the tutorial, over 3,000 people clicked on that tutorial. So over 3,000 clicks on the tutorial. And maybe some of those were repeat offenders, but it's good to know that the tutorial was viewed and was educational for folks. So now let's move to the events by the numbers. So before COVID, we had a number of people adding in-person events. And unfortunately, 59 of those events were postponed or canceled. But many people rose to the challenge, and new virtual events were added to SciStarter, so 121 of those. And of those, 68 of those had extra help from SciStarter. So they either had a SciStarter team member serve as an advisor, worked with us on a social media campaign, had an event produced in our Zoom webinar account, or maybe streamed it to Facebook Live. In some way, they were collaboratively produced with us. And of course, those weekly open calls, which were events in and of themselves, those started in October of 2019, and we ended up having over 90 of them because we all offered them multiple times on Thursdays to reach a global audience. We had people from Australia, Nigeria, all over the United States tune into these weekly calls just to talk citizen science and get some feedback and help. I also, from a sample size of 29 events where I had especially comprehensive data because they were produced in the SciStarter Zoom room and we had a comprehensive registration process, I was able to produce these visualizations just to give you all an idea of how things went. So for day of the week, it was pretty even spread. People didn't really do events on the weekend, which made sense in terms of the work week and how things went for event facilitators. But you can see here that the purple bar is registrants. So those are people who registered to attend on Zoom. The orange bar is attendees. So these are people who actually showed up on Zoom. And then the green bar is combined YouTube and Facebook Live views. The majority of our events were streamed to YouTube, but a few were streamed to Facebook Live at the beginning of the month at the request of different partners. And you might be wondering, why is this particular green bar so gigantic? Astronomy Magazine was a media partner for one of those Thursday events, so we have an outlier there. And we also had a number of attention from our media partners at Discover Magazine, National Geographic, Science Friday. Those events did very well when media partners really supported it and brought their communities to it. But as you can see, a number of registrants is pretty even spread for Tuesday through Friday, because that's where events were often held. And it looks like a lot of registrants to attendees, these bars are pretty evenly matched in the middle of the week. So just something to keep in mind, the work week seems to do well. Mondays, not as many events happen on Mondays. And there's, of course, some attrition between registrants and attendees. And then time of day. So same bars here, but now they are afternoon, evening, and morning. I just used our SciStarter colors. So it looks like the majority of attendees attended afternoon events. Those are the ones that did best. So something to keep in mind. And for the sake of my data analysis, I put all of these in Eastern Standard Time because that's my time zone and that's how I assisted folks. So afternoon and Eastern Standard Time tended to do the best, but this doesn't diminish the global events. I woke up at 5 a.m. sometimes to do our event with Citizen Science Asia and things like that. There definitely was a spread across time zones, but we had the majority of YouTube, Facebook Live views, registrants and attendees in the afternoon and Eastern Standard Time. And I can't stress enough how well the media partner events did. So that's something to keep in mind for Citizen Science Month 2021 and throughout this year. As you plan events and engage communities, it's very helpful to partner. We grow by connecting. And we had a number of registrants increase, a number of attendees, actual people in the Zoom room, and a number of YouTube and Facebook Live views, a higher number when we had a media partner. So the orange is yes, media partner, and the purple is no media partner. And the number of featured projects, I thought this was interesting. So some events went for more of a panel style, so multiple projects. Like the Astronomy Magazine event was 3 different astronomy projects. One of those being Globe at Night, one of the NLM featured projects about light pollution and how that affects human health. And some events were just one project. So Budburst, for example, they did an event with it was the Chicago Botanic Garden and Budburst. They did an event just about that project. So it looks like in terms of registrants, one project tended to get more people registered. In terms of attendees, one project tended to get more attendees. But in terms of YouTube plus Facebook Live views, multiple projects tended to get more YouTube and Facebook Live views. And that's because those events were the ones that usually had the media partners. So once again, that really affects the data, those important partnerships. And one thing I was interested in kind of assessing was whether or not people were getting zoomed out. I'm sure anecdotally, you all kind of felt this. It's like, oh, wow, I'm spending a lot of time on Zoom. And we definitely did see that. There were more registrants, attendees, and views in the first half of Citizen Science Month versus the second half of Citizen Science Month. And that's just inevitable, as we all spend more and more time online. But that just emphasizes the fact that we have to keep on providing quality events and engaging people and having those strategic partnerships to make our events count. And then I wanted to give you all some social media numbers. So that hashtag CitSciMonth on Twitter. But Twitter was where the real party was at. Of course, we were on Facebook and Instagram as well. But on Twitter especially, people use that hashtag on average 22 times a day from when it debuted in the beginning of 2020 to the present. So it was used 1,695 times. We also did social media takeovers. So we made a CitSciMonth handle on Twitter and Instagram. And we said once a week, starting in January, we gave it to a partner. So the European Citizen Science Association, our friends at NNLM, some of them took over. We had different libraries. I know Dan Stanton, who's on the line, he took over one of the weeks. So either an individual, an organization, or some sort of community entity took over that handle on Twitter and Instagram each week. So we had over 20 of those social media takeovers, and you can actually still sign up for this next iteration in preparation for CitSciMonth 2021, where we got the social media takeovers back up 2 weeks ago with a partner from Uganda who took over and talked about their work with their nonprofit. But Twitter is where we had the most engagement for that CitSciMonth social media takeover with over 300,000 impressions. So those are likes, retweets, views, interactions basically with that content. We had a lot of interaction with the content on Twitter, but we also had a fair amount on Instagram too. I know I'm thinking to give a shout out to our friends at Earth Echo, which is a nonprofit that focuses on citizen science and water. They were very creative with Instagram stories. And so I bet you some of those impressions are the result of Earth Echo's awesome work. So we're looking forward to getting more engagement on social media and reaching out to more people there. And if you all want to use that CitSciMonth hashtag while we're all here on Twitter or Instagram, we can continue to get those numbers up and spread the word. And I made this little GIF. It'll just play really quickly to give you an idea of all the awesome global entities that tweeted about CitSciMonth and talked about the different events they were planning online and how they were continuing to connect from home. So some insight on participants. These come from SciStarter's Google Analytics. Compared to April 2019, there is a 375% increase of the number of people who joined citizen science projects on SciStarter, which I think is pretty cool. And then the people who, from all these different countries, these are countries that I saw on the Zoom account. We had people tuning in to SciStarter Zoom events from the US, Ireland, Nigeria, Canada, Hong Kong, Bangladesh, Australia, and more. So on Zoom, YouTube live streams, and Facebook. And now I'm going to hand it over to Christy, who's going to walk us through assessments.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Eustace. I'm the Assistant Director of the University Office of Evaluation and Educational Effectiveness at Arizona State University. I'm going to shut off my camera due to some bandwidth issues, but I just want to pop on and say hello and reintroduce myself to everyone. We were fortunate to be able to help with the evaluation of Citizen Science Day last year, and then we're really excited to get in there and evaluate Citizen Science Month this year. And so this is just an overview of the data sources for the evaluation from Citizen Science Month 2020. We use analytics specifically for our portion of the evaluation, analytics from the NLM microsite that was already mentioned previously. We also had a tutorial survey. That survey was housed on the same page as the Introduction to Citizen Science tutorial, also on the microsite. Additionally, we had participant and facilitator surveys that were sent out after each respective event in April. Finally, at the beginning of May and kind of throughout May, we hosted 2 facilitator focus groups and conducted 6 project scientist interviews. There were 10 total facilitators that participated in the focus groups and 6 project scientists, as I mentioned, that completed the interviews. So I want to take a step back and just note that we are always looking at, impact and evaluation. We want to see kind of what the event or activity, kind of what impacts it has on, audiences, whether it's facilitators or participants. But with this kind of quick pivot amidst the COVID-19 pandemic to transitional or remote events, we really took a step back on the evaluation and really wanted to look at, okay, so given that, there were so many events impacted by this, what worked, what didn't work, and kind of looking at those formative and developmental pieces as well. So the focus groups in particular and interviews really allowed us to get some more in-depth information there. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with the tutorial survey and just give you some highlights. So overall, users of the Introduction to Citizen Science tutorial who completed the evaluation reported gains in awareness, interest, understanding, and comfort around citizen science as a result of completing the tutorial. Very similarly, all users indicated being either moderately, very, or completely likely to participate in citizen science again in the future, and also to enroll in the All of Us research program. Now, I have to mention that there is a caveat here. We did have a small sample size, as approximately 8 respondents. However, feedback was still overwhelmingly positive, and that was actually a large lesson learned that came out of this. It's just the project team is working now to figure out ways to enhance user responsiveness on the evaluation survey, as well as track user progress. Next slide, please. So this is actually the results. We asked the same question that Caroline asked at the beginning of this event, because we just were kind of trying to get a feel for like what happened, what were facilitators' experiences. So this is, of course, from the facilitator survey, where 44 facilitators responded. Out of the 44, the majority noted that they did transition their event virtual, which is 17, or that 39% in yellow there. Next comment, we had 12 facilitators report that their event did not change in any way, as it was actually planned to be virtual. So that's that 27% in blue. Next, we had 7 facilitators indicate that their original event had to be transitioned to an alternative event, as Caroline already mentioned. Some things you just cannot do online. And so that's okay. They still made that quick pivot and were able to provide a citizen science program during Citizen Science Month. Finally, we had 7 facilitators who indicated that they had to cancel their event, and 1 facilitator that indicated that they had to postpone their event. So I just wanted to note before we went on that some of the following data points or questions were only asked to the facilitators who either transitioned to an alternative virtual event or transitioned in general to a virtual event, because again, we were really looking at what that process looked like and how it could be better supported. Next slide, please. And so on the facilitator survey, we asked, based on your experience, how likely are you to facilitate virtual citizen science events in the future? As you can see, of the 16 respondents, all of them indicated, at least to some extent, that they were likely to facilitate virtual citizen science events in the future. And as you can see with the yellow bar there, the majority, or 11 facilitators, said that they were very likely. Next slide, please. So when asked how transitioning to a virtual event impacted their intended audience to participate, we did have facilitators write about the transition having a negative effect, particularly on underrepresented populations that are underrepresented in biomedical research, or UBR populations. Specifically, they mentioned just not having access or technology to internet as a concern or barrier. So really, it was recognized that when public spaces like libraries are closed, so is the critical access to resources that might allow engagement or greater engagement in virtual citizen science activities and events. Next slide, please. So here are just a few quotes from the facilitators around some of the supports that helped make the event successful. The one-on-one coordination with CitSciStarter staff, and both you can see mentioning the access to the CitSciStarter Zoom account, which enables larger audiences and broader participation. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is data that came out of the facilitator focus groups and project scientist interviews. As I mentioned, all the scientists were actually facilitators, and the data was largely aggregated because of the fact that some of the responses were just so similar and the experiences were so similar. So it enabled us to kind of provide these themes that really spoke across both of those groups. So first, we asked, like, what are the successes? What worked well? And these are kind of the main themes that came out. So the informal nature of virtual programming, there were numerous facilitators. In fact, I think this is the most popular theme, who felt that the informal nature of virtual events actually resulted in greater participant engagement and kind of allowed this friendly, like more informal conversational component to programming that maybe an in-person or more formal setting might not have. So I thought that was really interesting and great to know. Despite the noted barriers for some UVR groups, facilitators did feel that the virtual format allowed for a broader reach to new audiences, and in particular noted just being really excited about international participation and just kind of feeling like they definitely saw a greater increase in their participation and engagement. A valuable learning experience. I love this. The facilitators just leaned in. So, this is kind of a crazy time. Everybody had to pivot and just kind of figure out what this month was going to look like. And facilitators really noted that this was a valuable learning experience for them. It challenged them to develop novel resources to aid in participant learning, and also, kind of created this context where they had to just learn and adapt quickly to new delivery methods. And I'd say they did so very well. Next slide, please. Okay, this is again from the focus groups and interviews. So then we asked, so what were the barriers or challenges? Like what didn't work as well as in-person programming? And these were the main things we saw. So the primary one being loss of hands-on instruction. As I kind of noted, there are just some things that you cannot do virtually, especially a lot of the facilitators talked about trying to demonstrate tools or specific resources to participants. They felt that this could have hampered some of that educational value in some of these cases. And so that was a major barrier challenge. Of course, it would be expected that the quick transition to virtual format presented challenges around planning and implementation, especially when many of these facilitators had been planning for quite some time for an in-person event and then kind of had to pivot quickly, as mentioned. So, and it was surprising that this was actually something that wasn't mentioned by all facilitators, or as much as one would think. But of course, that was a major challenge. Similarly, technology barriers, only a few facilitators actually noted this in particular, but just saying that like it was difficult to become acquainted with new technology that they were now going to have to utilize and be facilitators for. And of course, there's no surprise that COVID-19, the thing that is making everyone's lives challenging, I imagine, presented a truly novel and unique challenge for facilitators. However, despite this, facilitators noted both in the focus group and interviews that they felt that their events adapted smoothly and were able to overcome the initial challenges presented by the upheaval in Citizen Science Month in-person programming. Next slide, please. Okay, and so I'll just let you read a couple of these quotes here. These are just quotes from the focus groups and interviews highlighting the successes and supports that enabled them or their events to be successful. Again, you'll notice that CitSciStarter was a key player in this, and really having that kind of individualized support and assistance was something that enabled these events to be successful. Okay, and so then this is from the facilitator survey, and we had 16 respondents to this question. These questions. These 4 questions asked facilitators if they felt they had enough resources and support to both transition and virtually facilitate their Citizen Science Month events in a virtual format, of course. These are the mean responses for the 16 facilitators who answered the question. And as you can see, all of these means fall within the agree range, which is between a 5 and a 6 on a 6-point scale. So this was a very strong finding that these facilitators who did respond felt that they were supported both in that transition and actual implementation of their event. Next slide, please. Oh, this actually wasn't from our data. We keep everything confidential, but it looks like this is something from Sorry, Caroline. You
Patrick
want to
emailed it to me. Yeah.
It's great. I love it. It absolutely fits with the evaluation, but I just, we do keep all of our sources confidential. But as you can see, this person reported having a large uptick and a large impact on their project, excuse me, with 492 classifications since Thursday. That's great to hear. Okay, so now I'm going to pivot a little bit into the participant data. This particularly came from the participant survey. So first, I just want to say for the sample size, it's notable that multiple UBR groups are represented. And so this was a sample size of about 25 participants who responded. And within that, we had individuals who were 65 or older, we had women, we had Asian, Latinx, and American Indian individuals, and individuals with conditions covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act, all of which fall under the underrepresented and biomedical research populations. Generally, participants self-reported gains in knowledge of citizen science, knowledge of science in general and citizen science, gains in confidence in participating in citizen science, and motivation to participate again in the future. Most participants also noted that attending these events actually made them feel more connected to others while practicing physical distancing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'll get into a little more detail on those data points in a further slide. We also looked at the NLM microsite analytics, as I mentioned, and these analytics provided supplemental evidence that citizen science interest and engagement peaked during Virtual Citizen Science Month, with most featured projects evidencing participation beyond April. So as Caroline was kind of walking through some of the analytics earlier from the SciStarter page, we looked specifically at for the month of April and then into May and in the very beginning of June as we were wrapping up our data collection, what the participation project clicks and all of that looked like. And what we found is for 5 of the 6, so for all of the projects, the peak was clearly during Citizen Science Month. And then for 5 of the 6 projects, there was also sustained or even increased participation following Citizen Science Month, which was really exciting to see. Next slide, please. Okay, and participants really had pretty minimal feedback with regard to what could be improved for next time. As you see here, they did request shorter events, or as Caroline mentioned, kind of keeping events to an hour. I can imagine, as Caroline already mentioned as well, kind of the Zoom fatigue and just keeping interest in screen time, but that was something that was mentioned by multiple participants. Additionally, numerous participants noted that they would appreciate more interaction between participants. So like the intentional deliberate times during the programming for participants to engage with each other and interact. Next slide, please. And here are just a couple of participant quotes. It was an excellent opportunity to know more about the other projects around the world. I felt extremely hopeful and inspired by listening to the wonderful presenters from the projects on SciStarter. I'd attend more events in person or virtually any day. It's really exciting feedback to see from participants. And so this is the slide I'm just kind of revisiting when I talked about average gains for participants with regard to knowledge of science and citizen science, motivation to participate, and confidence in participating in citizen science. Again, these items were from 22 to 24 participants, depending on if participants skipped questions. But as you can see, these averages are also quite high and are all in the realm of agreement, with the majority of them being around right around agree, which is a 5 out of a 6-point scale. So next slide, thank you. And so kind of just to wrap up the kind of overall insights from our evaluation, our overall facilitators were largely successful in transitioning and implementing their Citizen Science Month events in a virtual format. While facilitators noted the loss of hands-on instruction and the limited transition and planning time as barriers to participation, they also reported that the change in format allowed for a broader reach to audiences and afforded an important learning opportunity for facilitating virtual programming moving forward. Participants echoed facilitators and that they appreciated the ability to participate in an event with people from all over the world. Some participants also acknowledged the convenience and accessibility of virtual programming. Now, both facilitators and participants noted issues with technology as barriers or challenges, and facilitators suggested the incorporation of informal education sessions to get participants comfortable with the technology that will be used. And these were some recommendations that were presented as a result of the evaluation findings. So many of which are currently underway. Ensure processes are in place to continue collaboration with facilitators. And so also, getting planning, as we're already talking about Citizen Science Month 2021, which is great, and just kind of keeping those collaborations continued. Explore ways to help facilitators connect programming to additional UBR populations, understanding that there are barriers. Continue soliciting feedback from facilitators to understand their unique experiences and ensure continuous improvement of future virtual events. I think it's important to note that although we captured the themes that were similar across all facilitators, or at least numerous facilitators, each facilitator really did have a unique experience. And so continuing to hear their perspectives and experiences will definitely lend towards future improvement. Limit virtual events to 1 hour and provide an opportunity for participants to interact with each other, as we just talked about. And then as well, some logistics around testing technology and internet connectivity ahead of events wherever possible. Thank you very much.
All right, and we're just going to breeze through this poll. I'm only going to have it up for a second, but we want to know what your favorite platform is. We want you to help us. So quickly vote. I'm only going to have it up for a second, so now is the time. So what's your favorite platform? Do you like Zoom? Do you like Facebook Live? If it's something else, put it in the Zoom chat. Are you a go-to meeting person? Adobe Connect? We got some WebEx fans in the house. All right, I'm going to end it. So 3, 2, 1, last chance, and end. And it looks like Zoom is the clear winner. Well, that's good because you're on Zoom right now, but we're looking for ways to innovate. And even though we had a short lead time this year, putting our site up and getting Zoom going, we want to do even better in Citizen Science Month 2021. So let's build on this momentum. We won't have time to go through all of this, but throughout the year, SciStarter and all of our partners, we want to get citizen science out into the world through all sorts of different ways. And continued engagement with libraries is really key. You can go to scistarter.org/library-resources to check that out. We have the KIT program in partnership with Arizona State University and IMLS. And we have all sorts of other work with NNLM, including summer reading. So if you go to scistarter.org/NLM, that microsite we told you about, if you're part of a library staff, you can indicate your interest in working with us on a virtual program. And we already have these libraries that have indicated interest around the country in being part of virtual programming for Citizen Science Meets Summer Reading with the theme, Imagine Your Story. And you can actually attend one of these on Thursday. Join us online on Zoom once again to learn about the Globe at Night project, which is one of those NLM featured projects. It's a study light pollution with South Butler Library in Pennsylvania through All of Us, Pennsylvania. So yeah, I hope to see you there. And Citizen Science Month, April 2021. It's never too early to start planning. Social media takeovers are ongoing, so please sign up for one of those via the tiny URL right here, the bit.ly. You can just go to that in your browser. Join our weekly calls. We still have them every Thursday for multiple time zones. And keep up with our facilitator updates. You can sign up for, you can get the weekly call information at bit.ly/CitSciMonth facilitator updates. And you can also sign up for emails from us. We send them out about once a week or every other week. So a big thank you to all of our partners and for all of you for being here and making this possible. Before we move on to questions, I want to give Darlene a chance to reflect on everything and get us started.
Oh, Caroline, that was fantastic. And Christy and Lydia and Rhiannon, no, you did everything beautifully. I think our big takeaway from last year versus this year is we don't want to have any lag time. We don't want to have to lose the momentum. So we're really excited about that summer reading program to bring citizen science there. And we're already figuring out plans for Citizen Science Month 2021 and elevating some of the partnerships that we've come in contact with. So this is a great opportunity, even though we only have a couple of minutes to post your questions and know that you're part of this process. We want all of you that have tuned in to be part of the team that develops the plans moving forward. I think it's just going to get bigger and better. So ask questions if you have any. And also thank you for tuning in. And thank you so much for all the feedback about the whole experience, and a huge thank you to Caroline too. We didn't put all the quotes up there, but most people mentioned Caroline, even though that wasn't one of the survey questions. So I just wanted to say thanks to Caroline too.
That is true. There were a lot of write-in responses that were just like Caroline with an exclamation point.
Next year, we're just going to have a Caroline thumbs up, thumbs down survey question. No, just kidding. But if you want to fill out a survey for this event, go to bit.ly/CitSciMonth learning. We're also emailing it out to y'all afterwards. We want to hear what you think. And if you are open to being contacted by researchers, you can indicate that on the survey, or otherwise you can stay anonymous. We just want to hear what you think about this event. So let's quickly take some questions in our last few minutes. Mostly we got some thank yous. People said great. Oh, people said nice things about me. Thanks everybody. I'd love to see any questions from y'all. I have a quick question for Christy. As an evaluator, was there anything that surprised you about evaluating CitSciMonth?
Great question. I don't know that it surprised me as much as just impressed me. Like I kind of mentioned in the presentation or the portion I gave that, you know, really it at times felt very chaotic, and it felt like this is just all happening so quickly and all these amazing programmings are having to change. And at the same time, everyone really stepped up and, like I said, just kind of leaned in, and they looked at it as a learning experience, and they actually touted it as something that was valuable. And so that was just really impressive to me, to see that kind of resilience and ability to be flexible and adapt. And like I said, from an evaluation perspective, I just think it's amazing that all of these opportunities were extended when, you know, a number of programs, both citizen science related and not, were just not able to happen given kind of the global pandemic. So a huge kudos to all the facilitators who were able to make that happen and delivered, you know, as according to the feedback, what was really successful programming.
Thank you, Christy. And now I have a question for Lydia. Lydia, what's the best way that we can reach UBR populations for CitSciMonth 2021?
That's an interesting question. Thank you for asking that, Caroline. And I think one of the things that we're looking at NNLM is really focusing a lot of our work with particular libraries and community-based organizations in communities that already serve our UBR populations. So we have engaged in dialogue with members from a variety of groups that work with youth and adults, and are hoping to leverage their connections in order to further our work with citizen science. In addition, the All of Us Research Program, we have a variety of partners from a range of ethnic and diverse organizations that meet the needs of those individuals in the communities directly, and they are interested and excited about joining us for 2021. So stay tuned, and if anyone has connections, do let us know. Join those Thursday calls with Caroline, she's awesome, and let us know what you're looking for and how we can connect.
Awesome, thank you so much, Lydia. Let's see if we have any other questions coming in on the chat in our last 2 minutes. Robin says, NNLM has been a great supporter. NNLM rocks with their work with libraries to provide health literacy. Amazing work to serve UBR communities. Awesome, awesome. I have a question for Rihanna from the Citizen Science Association. Rihanna, what do you think is the best way for the whole library community to work with practitioners and people who lead citizen science projects?
Sure, thanks, Caroline. I think our working groups are a great way to get involved, and there's a lot of different topical areas that might appeal to librarians. I know that Vivian Bird, who is our Citizen Science Month co-chair, along with Darlene, is a librarian in LA, and it really encourages other librarians to get involved there. If you're interested in trying to help boost the Citizen Science Month and get more involved in the planning, that's a great place to start. You can find information about that on our website. And we also have working groups on data and metadata that might be interesting to some. We have an education working group that we're really excited to be reviving, that there will be lots of opportunities to connect and engage with. And so really lots of ways to get involved there.
Awesome. So in summary, I'm just going to kind of sum it all up here. Please get involved with CitSciMonth 2021. For members of library staff, citizen science can be a great tool to engage your community and engage UBR populations and things that matter to them. For library staff, we really hope that we support you. For community leaders everywhere, we hope citizen science is a great part of your programs. Virtually, we hope to continue to connect with you and to support you. So please go to citizensciencemonth.org to continue to access our resources. And please fill out the survey from today's event. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Any closing words, Darlene?
Hi. I would say if you're not already part of the SciStarter community, it's not too late to join SciStarter either.
There we go. And on that, I think we're going to stop sharing our screens. We're going to end the recording here. So we'll stop that. And thank you so much, everyone. We hope you have a great Tuesday and see you soon online for the next virtual event this Thursday for summer reading. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.